Yo, what's up, everybody? So today was kind of just an odd day a little bit. I had to go and haul some hay. So instead of going on my normal path, I kind of diverted my trail a little bit and landed in what I feel like is North Korea. I always have little sentiments of places in my world where they just feel a certain way. And I like to call this place over here in North Korea because it's just suburban hell. It's like this whole idea of truth is just television. It's almost like everybody here that would reside in suburbia basically just exists on TV. And it's almost like being a bear or something. This whole state where the only thing that propagates itself is some form of play. That basically plays off of whoever is in power. After all, Park is a Korean name, right? But the way television works, is completely psychological. don't know if I can use myself somewhere else to somehow create a bridge here that makes personal viewpoints not sound so crazy. Almost like the light here is just different. Well, it's the same sun, but the things I'm seeing are different, son. Is the sun up in the sky? Well, maybe the sun is just a sense of time. And what I see all around me is completely different than the time I've taken elsewhere. Everything is perfect. But I think that there are sleeping states in all things. And the structure, which represents the dynamics of life, they change but somehow stay the same, because there's always something that will believe in something. There's always something to believe in something. Whatever that something is. Basically, it's the idea that things and people are connected to the same ideas. It's that you have support in your surroundings and in your community, which to me creates the zombies that you would see. I'm all about recognizing the differences, even down to the point of where I could say, well, if you want to live that way, go right ahead. But if all you do is watch TV, especially packaged TV, which I'm sure they still do now, you can get different packaged TV, package plans, streaming services, whatever you want to say, that have certain programs that are on there for families, offer different programs for all types of organized bodies. It just creates a real sleeping state to me. It's not like truth can exist anywhere at any point. Which is more of what I believe. That's something walking through. Is just as true if they were to try to do what you do, but they had some difficulty, so they tried to do it in their way. But I think that sleeping state definitely exists. And I think that it's something that a lot of people miss. Like, honestly, you know what I mean? It's the idea that you can believe in a higher power, whether it's something that is beyond human comprehension or whether it's just an institution of power. I think a lot of people miss that whole idea, you know what I mean? Of just like thinking that there was a real sense of good and bad. And you know, as far as that whole idea can be pushed, it obviously differs at every point along the expression of an equation. But someone coming through, as long as they do it well, basically works just as much for any peaceful civilization or hell. And of course, there's things that walk through and do it shitty. What's going to happen to all the things that don't look pretty in heaven? Are there things that don't look pretty in heaven? The city of heaven. Where you know right from wrong. Where everybody's name is Park or Song. I think a lot of people miss the idea of believing in heaven or believing in something the older they get. Do we then view such places as being poor or uncared for? What about California, though? It's a bear as well. Maybe if TVs themselves could be stars. Maybe North Korea really isn't that far. You just really got to be able to see past everything in your way. Hell, you could see everything that way. Not just North Korea. It's like the idea of trying to get on TV. It almost fits perfectly. Trying to get into secret places. But again, maybe we're just looking for peace. That's all it is, but people don't respect the peace. And then it becomes ignored. Mistreated, even. Hell, could I make this a more common metaphor? How do you raise your kids? It's probably the best one out there that I could think of in this flash. But maybe there's places that have whole different ideas for this. They all coexist. There's places that have other ideas that are much more prolific. But you never know, I might be spending more time here in winter than anywhere else, so maybe I need to say something a little more. Maybe I need to act as though I do this all the time. And that this isn't forced. I'm gonna create my own North Korea over here. But I'm just gonna call it here I got a good name that's like totally Californian, dude. Or cartoon, television. I can see it now. I'll sell you on this. Does this really stand for what it means, or does it mean something else? Anyways, it's called SuperKid City. And instead of Kim Jong-un or whatever, we got Johnny Bravo. Hey, huh. I just gotta mix it all up. Pack it all together. And tell everyone who ain't a super kid to keep out. Don't worry, I can kind of speak a little bit louder at a camera and yell at it because, you know, got like 4,000 videos on a channel. You can check it out. No matter who you are, I could be anywhere and tell anyone to look it up if they know how to use the internet and they're given privileges, which, you know, if there's somebody in power or something. We'll have people playing as TVs playing as people. Everything at a glance will either look like a person or nothing at the same time. Is the spirit there? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the spirit is nowhere. So yeah, we'll be like North Korea in a way, you know? Have that whole idea of who the hell's raising us anyways, though, instead of there being like an almighty one, you know? But maybe it'll be like we're all raising each other. But really, I'm telling you, it's super hard to get in. It is like impossible. You've heard of Harvard? Well, I'm gonna tell you this now. Hardly nobody ever has heard of SuperKid City. That's how impossibly difficult it is, okay? It is damn near impossible to get it in. And we have beliefs about heaven and hell. And I'm going to take this time now to kind of tell you what we proliferate on our airwaves. But we only do it up to a point, okay? And what inspired this, gotta mention my book here, because I did come here reading a book, you know what I mean? That's ultimately what I was doing. I just went on a huge tangent or whatever, which is fine because, you can take it as what it is, or you can take it as another one of whatever else I've done or did. So, whatever. Anyways, here's the part of the book that I'm in. Let's see how much I read today. Quite a bit, actually, because I was just walking. I just went and walked around and then read the book while I walked. So started at this place that has this whole caption, "Run like the wind," but then the author was like, "The wind, but I was the one creating it." So, she creates a little dichotomy that there's no real way to get rid of the self. In science, they'll say that there's always, bias or human error. There's no such way of getting rid of it completely, right? But here's how much I read. Then I got to this place, which has a, like really, really pretty buck kind of thing here. It's much more of like a master of the forest or some branching deity of some kind or of some sort. "I do not let things go softly, even though my voice is hard to hear. The words still fall from my mouth like a tree that keeps giving until it has nothing left. I may be emotionally nude, but the view is still beautiful." And that actually wasn't the part that I was that inspired me to read. Oh, here it is. Becoming a sunflower. This is the part that I'm going to transition off into, and what I'm kind of making this whole segment into, right? Is this portion that she wrote about a flower, because I have a few things that I haven't ever shared on here, you know what I mean? And I had something about a flower. And so it says, "Becoming a sunflower. Dig deep, face the sun, open your heart, catch the rain, stay wild, be messy, fall, it won't hurt, I promise, keep breathing. Note to self, even flowers are beautiful when it's dark." And so I actually thought, I was like, oh, I have something that sounds almost exactly like that. You know what I mean? Something that I wrote a while ago or whatever. But I'm going to throw it in here into this video. And then just for fun, you know what I mean? Because really all I'm doing is playing, right? You know, somehow I think TV is like a projector. It's like you go and sit down and it's like, as much as you're just a point of a billion specks of light, all of a sudden that's what you are. And so in that kind of way, you know what I mean? I think I can make it reach some cutting edge sort of thing. But I think if it really was like that more, it'd be just almost like it was just you watching television. And the experience would be much more, again, subjective than a kind of an objective thing to create that objectivity of it, you know, where it feels like it has true directive. And maybe at that point in time, you feel like you actually have much more of an understanding as to the motions of life. And maybe as much as all of us miss those places, we kind of hate them as well, because it's an innocent kind of thing, you know. I'm just to be real here, and it's like, now I can branch into this. I do not let things go softly, even though my voice is hard to hear. The words still fall from my mouth like a tree that keeps giving until it has nothing left. I may be emotionally nude, but the view is still beautiful. I may be all out there, but I still look pretty good right here. Good job. SuperKid City. Maybe I just like talking to myself too. A little bit. But anyways, I kind of feel like I expressed everything I felt like I wanted to say. And I gotta go now. So, bye. You are the moment of a flower. It is pretty everywhere. If I take a flower to war, a flower is still pretty. If I take a flower to the moon, a flower is still pretty. The moment it is spring, there are flowers everywhere. But if I don't take a moment to call a flower pretty among all the flowers, would I ever want to go to the moon or to war with me? Each moment I would need a flower. As you can see here, I took the initiative upon myself to render an idea into the physical world. Now, if we are to look at truth itself, I think that what we would find is that truth is something that takes time and experience if we are to get to the closest idea of the truth as possible, which itself denotes a perspective or perception, because things are then looked at linearly instead of as being completely circularly, which would mean that everything becomes everything, ultimately even its opposite, and then goes nowhere as far as it began, which is the idea of structure and power itself. But it is from that place that we either hold or remove from to give us a sense of things being done, or a sense that more should be done. So if we are to look at every idea as a possibility, and we are to try to retain as much truth as possible in our definition of truth itself, then what parts of the truth matter the most? I think in your decision of how you represent the truth, both in word and in deed, is not only a small choice, but a big choice as well, as you have identified what your idea is. It may not seem to be in good favor that the truth is something which can be spun. However, I reject the idea that this negates the idea of a truth, as when we consider objects that are independent yet related in small ways and big ways with certain amounts, we see that mass can be a determining factor for not only things astronomical but carnal as well. It is when a thing has mass that it actually gains the ability to move. Pure light is as a point that has never gone anywhere, inclusive to all hypotheticals as much as any reality. by which we can explain the language itself is not a physical thing. Yet the closer our language comes to the truth, the more it is an idea of what could be, what brings us closer to the physical nature of all things, what has never moved. So all of life is a language that expresses itself from one rule. That one rule is, nothing is still. So the greater anything's mass is, the closer we are to the idea of truth. Yet because we know that nothing is still for anything to be, for it is becoming more near to the idea of everything becoming a hypothetical from everything being one thing, it is then that mass itself translates to motion, and the reason for all things is to move. It therefore becomes apparent that when anything becomes a possibility, it can be manipulated in this way as an idea that is from something that doesn't move. Yet the closer we get to the truth, the more that everything moves. It is from this idea that we have an idea of the truth, but as truth is from time and experience, there is no real way of knowing what the future is and what a certain thing is a part of the truth or not. So then there is the immovable object present in the future as something we cannot know for sure. Yet the more experience we use, the more that the future then becomes a hypothetical for all reason. So you can interact with any idea in this way. As for experience in gaining mass, for interpretation upon an amount of its mass, this will relate to how much you can relate an idea to something that doesn't move. Where any idea is as true as much as the experience used to move, it makes any idea true. Being in the motion of this idea, the only truth to be told is mass from which any motion can be made. I would like to formally express my beliefs at this date in a way that captures what I think to be the problem that I am having with many. To begin, I am going to give imagery to my thought in the form of a simple line. Above this line is the word real, below this line is the word not real. It is from one end of the line that we are able to predict the other end of a line. For if it is a line, then all points that will occur from one end will be on the line. So we can predict the nature of where the line goes. From this, we can say that given a point in life, we can draw a line to see the nature of all things and where all things come from. A common thought practiced in philosophy as first cause, from which all things are then related to by an action and come from the same place. So this place as a first cause knows everything that will happen. I like to compare this point to the thoughts people have on God, or within physics to the Big Bang. Whether consciousness of this is in question, I usually refer to the idea as to how much words themselves can influence our world and change the world just by one word. So let's say that someone has a dream, and from this dream they think of something that causes a change, and they speak a word that came from this dream. In this way, dreams can even shape reality. What this means to me is that the world is, for lack of a better description, has power, that it is out of control, which means that there is something mysterious that holds its direction together. If things are as finicky as this, making the world have a glimpse of fate and determinism as progression is a solid thing from the beginning that represents all things, and all things work towards this end. Though I like to think that anything spoken of in terms of the mysterious itself contains the unknown, and without the unknown factor, we lose what we are talking about, and that is possibility. Possibility, a thing that both the future and this point have in common, as in the future isn't necessarily a solid depiction, but an idea that can go anywhere. And the past is a solid idea of this from which everything begins. So then from this point, we can see that everything which becomes advanced or furthered starts from a point that is potential itself. This starting point of everything, whether described as all-knowing, a point of infinite mass containing all things infinitesimally small, or chaos, it doesn't negate the fact that all things that happen relate to it, making us question our free will, the nature of reality, and our place within it. I say these things because then, when I look at the world, I take this into consideration. How hard is all of this really? Because if I use my head a little bit to look at the problem, it seems like the first point of anything is fairly small. Look at mathematics, and the ideas that follow are built off of ideas that are basic, which means that we, in a sense, do the impossible by keeping things within our scope of comprehension. I then question the nature of reality and say that if this point of light is true as the beginning, then all things are essentially the same thing that exists, which means that we do not need to complicate things to accomplish anything within our world. If by small means everything is, and it eventually relates, the reason why the world doesn't explain this is also explained as that a thing which knows itself perfectly knows exactly what to say, which means that for existence to be, everything gives you a response that only forwards existence, which means you can believe in this and believe what everyone else is saying and how they do everything within their life while not detracting from this point at all. This means that everything is as non-existent as it is existent. For as much as the point from which all things began, which is non-existence, the potential for everything exists, which means everything exists at this point as never happened, and relates to every point of happening reality, meaning that we can say anything as reality itself is no more important or factual as things that have never happened, meaning there is no law to anything as anything can happen, inasmuch as the experience of anything that can happen is contained in this point, being the point contained within every existent point. This can be painted in the terms of a line as the other end of a line being far from the point or far from the start, while still in essence being connected to the original point, where truth and lie can coincide. As solid as an idea, which can be solid but is not a solid thing, where the point isn't to be a point, so everything advances, though while along advancement everything tries to remember the point, which is everything becoming very complex to remind you that you are actually simple. While though the more you believe this, the more of a line you become focusing on the point, and realize that the point of everything is to be free, so a line can be anything as much as it can point to anything. This is my daily struggle with reality, as if this is true, you cannot necessarily disprove it by everything containing all knowledge, so it only proliferates self-protection and existence. It doesn't necessarily refute the points that anyone has, but does relate all points to a choice in the beginning, meaning that there is no coincidence, which does give way to how you would view people within a reality where everyone got what they wanted. Work is only for the purpose of freedom in this way, so it can never be used as a point of complication in this way, for everything relates to being able to be done by anyone through small and simple means, which this explanation of reality, where also nobody can ever be wrong, as much as the end of a line reminds them of the point, only furthering this mechanism by which reality constructs distance between itself. By this means, I relate myself to having come from nothing, as much as everything relates to nothing, and for it to be as true as any other form of relation told by anything. Any way in which anyone treats this information will result in the process above, by how a point in a line forms. Which means I will believe as much as anything up to a point, and think I am responsible to act on anything up to a point, as much as anything thinks there is a point to be had, which automatically relates to this as the beginning which is good and the end which is bad, for which I say it is all just a trick of the light. Is light a particle or a wave? One is the point and the other is every other point on the line. It all relates to everything in time, and time doesn't exist where everything relates. Reaching this point is like accelerating to the speed of light. The moment something does, its mass becomes infinite, which makes it pointless and going nowhere. As much as the first point goes nowhere, but exists everywhere. Likewise, in creating true meaning, it can mean anything. E equals mc squared. If you could commune with God in any manner, by this point it has already happened, so make it happen. As corruption is far from choice itself, made by choices that appear to compete, where ungodly experience is held, that draws a line between competing choices, which there is corruption. Choice itself is a never-ending line, where experience is held in the choice for experience, where a line is drawn between a point and experience being a point. Being that a point and experience and a line can all be the same thing the more fine they become, so that everything is on the other side of this fine thing, making choice itself the experience of the other side, at which point is the only experience. You can make this point out of anything, the more you make it a choice.